So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to take apart the crank in this video. So I'm going to start by taking this chain guard off to make things a little bit easier for us. This might, I don't know, I might just make a separate video on this on its own, but you can see how this chain guard is warped the way it is. What happens is sometimes when people are riding, it'll go like this, and then the pedal comes over and catches like that, and that's no good. But anyways, back to this. There we go. That was on there pretty good. Alright, so you take your crescent wrench on there, stick it on there, and this is going to be a left-handed thread, so we're going to turn it to the right in order to loosen it. This might be on there, just sometimes on there a little tight. There we go. Got this guy. Now we got this lock washer here. You can see the little nub there that goes into this notch, so keep that in mind. And now this, same thing, we're going to spin it to the right in order to loosen it. This has always been loose enough that I could just spin it off with my hand, but if it is ever stuck on there for whatever reason, you would take this spanner wrench and you come in there like this, and then you would turn it like that. But I'll just go ahead and do this. So I'm just setting up like a clean surface on this table. It's obviously the bearings are pretty dirty right now, but so what you can do, normally these bearings aren't in too rough of a condition, so you can I normally just use my spray degreaser here and wipe them down really good. If you don't want to do that, you can always just drop them in some jar of degreaser if you have that laying around, or some mineral spirits or something like that. Okay. So yeah, that's more or less the process. Again, if you see a bearing that's in like worse condition, like maybe something like this, maybe I would just drop this to my mineral spirits. But for the sake of moving this video along, I already have some spare bearings over here, which are right here. There we go. That's a little gross. There we go. So you can see that's the same bearing. This is a cage that's lost its bearing somehow. So we'll set those aside. Yeah, nice and clean, shiny, I should say. And crank. So let's see. There's one more thing we can do with this. I'll see if I have the tool over here. Yes. I'll go ahead and so got these 3 prongs here. Those fit in these 3 notches. Just like that. And I think this is left-hand thread. I'm not sure. We're gonna okay, try the other way. There we go. So it's right-handed thread, or normal thread, I should say. And the reason we would take this guy off is in order to get to the sprocket here. So that'll just slide over like that. Like a spacer washer. There we go. So this looks alright. We could clean it up a bit. So here's a brand new sprocket. Here's the old sprocket. What we can do is lay these on top of each other. And if everything lines up pretty good, and it does, it looks like it lines up pretty good, then you know that this one isn't out of round. And that's kind of the only way I know how to check it, really. What happens is over time, just through wear and tear, as the chain is pulling on it, it'll constrict one side and elongate the other side. So you have like an oval thing, and unfortunately I don't have a bike laying around that I can show you that. But how you'll be able to know that that's a problem is that as you're turning the crank, the chain will be tight in some areas, and then it'll just get loose, and it'll tighten back up, and then it'll get loose. If it's really dramatic, then that means the sprocket's out of round, and you got to change that. So it's not something that happens very often, but it's worth looking out for. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and clean this off. Okay. Yeah, so once we get this guy relatively clean, we're going to go ahead and stick it back. You can kind of see there's a slight difference. You can see this back piece is more flat and this front piece is a little more rounded out. You can also see where the washer used to press against here. So we're going to make sure we keep it like that. Then line that up. Good. I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm actually going to put just a small amount of anti-seize on this. I suppose grease would have the same effect, but I'm going to use anti-seize. I'm just gonna paint this washer because you can see where the scuffs are happening. So this anti-seize is gonna help alleviate some of that. Yeah, you can see again a little more scuffs. Okay. Alright, that's on there pretty good. So, back to this. Make sure we clean up this. Alright. We're here. Now we got all that. Bearing grease. Your hands free of any dirt here. There we go. Now we're going to try to see these crank bearings have a lot of crevices on the inside here, so we're going to try to fill that up just by doing it like this. So this additional grease I'm putting on top of the bearing is just going to help prevent, it's going to help divert any water that might get down into here. So we're going to try to get this in there as carefully as possible, but we'll probably end up knocking this bearing loose anyways. That's fine. It requires spin angling. There we go. There we go, that's not too bad. So now I'm going to grab this guy, just drop him on there. Hold this in place. Now remember, this was a left-handed thread, so we're going to spin it to the left. Okay. Alright, have a sit here. Now you can see where that extra grease I put on there comes into play, because we're not really, this isn't as good of a seal as it ought to be. There we go. So now what I'm doing here, it feels kind of tight right there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to back this off 1/8 of a turn. That still feels kind of tight. Another 1/8. I think that's alright, although it's jostling just a little bit, so I'm just going to tighten it a smidge. I'm going to hold this. Lock washer. I'm going to tighten that down. Okay. Now if we got this right, it should still spin freely. And it does. And I just want to check it, make sure it's not jostling about, and it's not. Good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it just a little more. There we go. Still good. Alright. But you saw at that one point when I was going by 1/8 of a turn. So what I did is I spun it down so that it was finger tight, and then I took the spanner wrench and I loosened it just 1/8, which is like, I don't know, what would you call this, from 3 o'clock to 4:30. And that seems to be just the right length for gives it just the right amount of looseness in the bearings so that they spin freely, but they're not so loose that they're chattering around in there. And the same applies for the front bearings on this wheel and the rear bearings on the rear wheel. And yeah, I cover pedals in different videos, so you don't need me to show you that, and obviously chain guard.